I did, yeah.
A very good morning and many thanks for staying with us right here in Morning at NTV. My name is Romeo Busiku. Well, the world is observing the first ever International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Food Waste. Yes, that is the case right there. The 74th United Nations General Assembly designated this day last year in 2019 in a bid to recognize the the importance of embarking on sustainable food production in a bid to promote food security and nutrition. So to expound on this and a lot more, I'm joined by Antonio Carrido. He is the Food and Agriculture Organization Country Director to Uganda. He's not alone. We also have Ms. Agnes Chirabo. She's from the Food Rights Alliance. A very good morning and many thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much.
Ms. Antonio Carrido, you're here for the second or third time. Amazing to have you again.
Thank you very much.
Well, what do we have to know about the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste?
This was proclaimed last year, in December last year. The General Assembly of the United Nations did proclaim this day as a day that we all collectively pause and to look at the importance, but also to find the causes and the possible solutions to address the food loss. Because we know that the world is losing over 14% of the food that is produced, along with this resources, energy, labor. Also money has been lost because of the food waste. So there is room for improvement. Today is a day that we should collectively pause, reflect, but also identify actions that we should take to stop the food loss, because we know that we have so many millions of people, 690 millions of hungry people in the world, and we cannot afford to continue to lose so much food, while we know that we have those that are in great need of this food. So today is a collective effort. As you know, this is not only is collective. All of us should be engaged to inform, to educate ourselves, but to take actions to stop the food loss and waste in Uganda and in the world. So yes, we are making history. Today is the first, and Uganda is joined the collectivity of the nations to really to say stop wasting food for the people, but also for the planet.
Let me also bring in Ms. Agnes Chirabo. She's from the Food Rights Alliance. What are the implications of just throwing away food?
I think to start with, this is an abomination. We should condemn it. We should not even sweet talk or be kind or be what. I'm here to condemn it, and I'm here to invite you to condemn it, and condemn whoever you see is taking action or engaging in any form of action that is going to result in that small piece of food going to waste. I think that one I'm not going to compromise, and I'm not going to wait for tomorrow. I'm condemning you who has wasted food this morning and who wasted food last night for your dinner. I'm condemning you, and I'm inviting you to condemn whoever you see serving food and leaving parts of remains of that food on the plate. The consequences are dire.
Indeed.
Because we can't be here looking for food to feed others. In Uganda, we are talking about 11 to 12. There could even be 15 million people following COVID. And you're producing food, you're serving food, you're shopping food, and you're planning to waste it. So you're not only constraining those that would have eaten that food, but also you're constraining the resources. We keep condemning smallholder farmers in this country and asking them to increase the production and productivity. And increasing production and productivity, the alternatives we have given these farmers is chemicals, is fertilizers, is all those sorts of things. And yet those ones alone are putting a great constraint to our planet, to our environment, and yet the food they are producing doesn't meet the plate. For instance, we are having figures in Uganda that for every 10 kilograms of maize produced, at least close to 2 kilograms, close to 1.5 kilograms, that is 1.2% or 12%, gets wasted or lost on the farm. And after that has come out of the farm, close to 2 kilograms. So at the end of the day, only around 6 kilograms of the 10 kilograms produced find their way on the plate. But just look at Kampala alone. We are having figures that are telling us that in Kampala every day we are generating 750 tons of garbage. And these 750 tons of garbage, the biggest proportion of it is food. Now the implication. That food, when it goes as waste, it is emitting emissions into the atmosphere. We have wasted water, energy, like Dr. Antonio has put it, producing that food. And we are going back the next morning, and the next morning, and the next morning. What will the other generation that is coming behind us find in terms of resources to produce this food? I want to end this by saying, that single tomato that you're throwing away, one tomato, producing it requires 3 liters of water, one tomato. And it is worse for a fruit like orange. It is worse for a kilogram of beef. Because for one orange to produce it, you see it, just one orange, that orange in that basket, that orange behind your cupboard, that orange on your market stall, one like this, it spent 50 liters of water to produce it. And after spending all of that resource, you throw it away. It is unacceptable. It is an abomination. And we are here to tell you that it is unacceptable, and we are here to condemn it. And I think when we start condemning ourselves, then we are going to start taking conscious decisions.
Conscious decisions like Dr. Antonio Carrido's. What needs to be done? The recommendations to avoid food waste.
Several actions is the way forward.
Right.
First is the recognition that we need to stop, as Agnes has pointed out. Because in 2015, we agreed, the nations agreed, that the SDG 12 is a responsible consumption and production. And there is a target that we need to achieve by 2030. That is reduced at least by half the per capita food loss in the world, not only at the consumer, at the retailer, but also along the value chain that we need to look at it. Important action is for us to know where we're losing the food and which action we have to take. Along every value chain, every commodity, there is an opportunity for us to do more to reduce the food loss. We know that when the reduction occurs close to farmers, there is an implication on food security. When the reduction occurs along the downstream, the food chain, there is an implication on greenhouse gas emissions. So we need to look at our production system in a ways that we identify where we're losing it, what practice are promoting this food loss, and really tackle it in a way that creates efficiency in our system.
So what are some of those practices that are promoting food waste?
First, it has to do with some production practice. Because Agnes has mentioned that at production level you do have some loss. Then after you harvest, the post-harvest processes, particularly here in Uganda, we have huge losses. In maize alone we lose close to 18% of our production. In rice 13%, in millet around 12%. So post-harvest has been our biggest challenge in terms of food loss. And also, when you come at the household level, we need to do more in terms of to ensure that we reduce the food waste.
Well, of course, Agnes Chirabo, this all comes a few months after you authored a report in conjunction with Twaweza, and you indicated that 6 out of young children below the age of 6 months are still eating the same food as other members of the family, and we're talking about food waste. What does that all mean?
Once we have to tell the viewers this morning that as we speak today, this country has enough food to feed everyone, to even feed the population we are scared of feeding in 2050. We have that food today, the 29th of September 2020. That food is in this country. But it is in this country, again, like you have said, you're talking about those children that were eating the same meal as their parents. We had 16% of children during the lockdown that went without any single meal in a day. We had around 55% households that reduced the number of meals being served, including the meals that are being served to children, and 58% that even reduced the size of the meals that are being served to children. So we are walking a tightrope of having a very big proportion of this population malnourished, and therefore they're not going to be able to contribute constructively to the development of this country, because their cognitive capacity is already malnourished and it is not going to function at the level expected. And we are here having courageous people that are wasting food that we already have in the system. You have asked Dr. Carrido, and he has actually put it there. The farmers, when they produce, we should forget as a country that food production is solely a responsibility of the farmers. They look for the land, they look for the seed, they buy a fake one, they look for labor, they look for everything, and after producing, nobody takes responsibility. We are here to remind the government that it is your duty and responsibility to ensure that the people in the walls of Uganda feed adequately. Feed adequately, and therefore you should take that duty and responsibility when you see these smallholder farmers after suffering that much, and then the state and other stakeholders take responsibility of that food. But farmers now, they've not had a good dry spell, and yet the grains and the legumes were ready for drying. So we are only going to get poison because the aflatoxins are finding their way. They can't dry the food, they can't store the food, and yet after the food has been produced, it's a national good, it's a public good. And therefore we should invest in infrastructure to support the farmers after they have labored, and then the national product comes into the national coffers, which is not happening. So they are losing that. It is hard to get the proper drying. And you know, it is evident during the lockdown. You saw the Bureau of Standards telling us that 38% of the food government gave out was not fit for human consumption, but that food was gotten from the market.
Indeed.
And I'm telling you, one other thing people didn't know, that 38% of that food went to waste, because it wasn't good for human consumption.
Indeed.
It wasn't good for animal feed, it isn't good for a fertilizer. Therefore, we are a low-income country, and we need to use our resources efficiently, and we need to invest intelligently. Therefore, we cannot afford, after putting our small pennies in food production, and we leave it to go to waste. And I know our government has what it takes to even enforce some of these things, because just by a pronouncement that we shall not allow border borders in the business district at night, in the morning police was all over arresting every motorcycle. So we are capable of enforcing, and this is what we are crying out to the stakeholders. The state will enforce. The state has to intelligently and strategically invest to support the farmers, but also support the management of the food. Dr. Carrido yesterday talked about something very interesting. If you know how much vegetable, how much fruit go to waste, these are the foods we need now to build our immunity against COVID-19. They are the bulk of the waste at every marketplace.
Let me also bring in Dr. Antonio Carrido. He is the Food and Agriculture Organization Country Director to Uganda. Antonio, do you agree with some experts who contend that the COVID-19 pandemic and the measures that were put in place to ward the contraction and the spread of the same contributed to food waste? Why? In that lack of transportation, the farmers couldn't transport their produce to the market, and even some of those small-scale business people couldn't actually sell their produce because they were stuck at home. So how do you make what do you make of all this?
COVID-19 has been a wake-up call for all of us, the way we produce, the way we handle, the way we consume the food. In time of crisis, like COVID pandemic, there is no room for food loss. And we saw, in fact, because due to the restriction on the movement, a lot of waste increased because the time for the produce to reach the market increased, and the consumer also changed their pattern in terms of purchasing. So a lot of, particularly vegetables, fruits, the perishable, due to lack of infrastructure, as Agnes has mentioned, due to lack of capacity to store and really increase the shelf life of this product, we have seen that the restriction, the lockdown, really increased the food loss. But because we lack the necessary infrastructure to really to deal with the situation, so going forward, really to address this challenge that we have along the whole chain. Otherwise, we'll continue to see these losses, and losing the resources would impact on the people, because we're going undernourished, but also with a huge impact on our planet. We cannot sustain this level of production. We cannot sustain this level of food loss, and all nation is called to do something, and to do something radical, because in Africa alone, and the sub-Saharan Africa, where the farmers live with less than $2 a day, we lose annually over $4 billion of food loss. And when you look at globally, this number goes almost to $400 billion of value of food that we're losing annually. And at the same time, the contradiction that we spoke yesterday is you have millions and millions of people dying. So today is an opportunity for us to think, and is a day that not to celebrate, not to commemorate. The world has so many international days, but this day is a day on observance for us to really to see what action can I take as an individual to do things different. Because it's not only the producers, it's not only the public and private sector, it's all of us. All of us, to a certain extent, we are part of this solution. Therefore, today is for us to see how we inform, how we educate, how we teach our children to be respectful of the food they consume, how we educate our society to do something different, to have a different type of consumption of the food that is our farmers put so much energy in producing, and we cannot afford to continue this level of food waste.
Indeed. As development partners, what is the Food and Agriculture Organization doing to help these farmers to promote sustainable food production in order to promote food security and nutrition?
First and foremost, the efficiency in the way you produce. You produce more with less. You be mindful of the resources that we put in your production. Our farmers, too often we don't do the accounting. When you put water, you put your label, you put energy, how much of these resources are going into production. Then comes the other part, how we manage what we produce. There where we see a lot of waste and a lot of deficit in terms of innovation, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of the skills that you also need to ensure that whatever you produce is preserved and reach the market in quantity and quality that have the standard. Here the role of private sectors is important. The role of the government is also critical to ensure that you have the enabling environment to reduce the food loss. We have created as FAO a food loss index to help track changes, to see how since 2015 to now how countries are progressing.
So how have countries progressed since 2015?
Not so good.
Not so good.
Not so good.
All right.
I'm sorry to report that we're still far away from the target that we proposed ourselves in 2017.
So besides COVID-19, things were actually deteriorating.
Yes, we still have levels of food loss that is totally unacceptable.
All right.
And I agree with Agnes, should be forcefully condemned.
As forcefully condemn it. As we wrap up, Agnes Chidabo, besides government intervention, what needs to be done by some local partners like yourself, Food Rights Alliance, to help these household level farmers to actually promote sustainable food production?
As Food Rights Alliance, we decided to address the software aspect of a human being in this country, because there has been a lot of hardware. There is a lot of hardware. Everybody thinks about supporting farmers with inputs and what. You know, that's hardware. But we came in to address, to speak to that software, and I think that is sometimes why I use very hard words, to wake up the software, the instinct and the intrinsic aspects of the people. And we need to take those intrinsic actions right from the households up to the policy level, because interestingly, our policy makers come from the same societies, and they are us. So if we address that across the board, then we are going to make the right decisions, we are going to make the right policies, we are going to make the right laws, we are going to put the right investments, we are going to put the right infrastructure. A word to a wise is always enough.
Indeed.
And we are going to invest in speaking these words and saying these words like we are saying this morning. Take responsibility of your own actions, to start with you as an individual. Then you're going to support the farmer, you're going to support Mother Planet, because we shall be condemned. If I don't condemn you, you shall be condemned when we are dead, that we did not leave the planet to feed the generations that are going to come behind us.
Agnes Chidabo from the Food Rights Alliance, and Mr. Antonio Carrido, he is the Food and Agriculture Organization Country Director to Uganda. Many thanks for having made the time to speak to NTV.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, we've been discussing the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste. Yes, that conversation has come to an end. Let's take another short breather. We'll be right back with another that is centered on government's approval of a fixed rental tax. We'll be right